was on American Idol and I was a Broadway actor before I ever did YouTube. It was all by accident I realized that I could make a name for myself. This is a whole visual album. It's my lemonade, but it's a little Kool-Aid. I've been shooting 16-hour days, so what we're doing tomorrow, I'm writing tonight. I ended up writing a full-on musical.
Todrick, what made you do this?
I just made a decision one day. I want to talk about my most personal things and turn this into art. My mom's gonna lose it. She doesn't know I wrote an album or...
We have had a very turbulent relationship.
I thought my mom was gonna respond to me coming out in a different way. I was really becoming comfortable with being a gay man. I refused to let people scare me from being proud of who I am. Pulse was like a second home to me. They were a part of my community.
I think he was really trying to find a way to make the world accept him. How was he gonna present it to the world?
I love you so much, and you're such an inspiration.
I found your It Gets Better video right when I needed it, and then I found all of your work, and it's really helped me through.
To change hearts and change lives like that, it's a beautiful thing.
It's like letting him go so that the world can have him.
There was something else I was gonna say.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay Parker from Yahoo Music. I am so excited to be talking to you. Todrick, you and I go back a ways. American Idol Season 9 is when we first met, and it's been so exciting to see you basically become the star of everything, Broadway, MTV, Drag Race, YouTube, of course, and now Straight Outta Oz and Behind the Curtain. And, well, first of all, congratulations on everything you've done.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on this outfit. You look amazing.
Well,
Hi, everyone.
So, like, I was talking about YouTube, and I was talking about some of the things you do, and they're known to be a little more on the campy side, the colorful side, the lighthearted side. So when you decided to do Straight Outta Oz, the visual album that this film is about, you were definitely showing a different side of yourself that a lot of your fans hadn't seen before. So an obvious question to start with is, why were you ready to do this now? What was the impetus behind that decision?
Well, I had just gone through so many things, and my YouTube channel was more like what I remember experiencing growing up as a performer. So I was playing a lot of different characters, but I had a couple of friends that I was talking to, and I thought, you know, like you think that your fans know these certain things about you, and I realized that I was like hiding behind all these characters, not intentionally, but my fans didn't really know anything personal about me. They just knew the characters I played online, and so I decided I wanted to tell part of my story, and these were real issues I was struggling with. Racism in the industry, homophobia within the industry, which is ridiculous because the LGBTQ community basically runs the industry. But it's crazy that oftentimes we are put behind the scenes. People want to like wear the clothes that we create, or sing the songs that we write, or wear the outfits that we've designed. And it's not necessarily that we are the people that are in the limelight and being able to reap the rewards and the direct benefits from the work and the talents that we possess. And so I was like, I really want to talk about that without seeming like a victim, and also comparing it to something that I love. And The Wizard of Oz has been my favorite story since I was a child. And I felt like it was a great transition for me, and it was a really good time for me to do it. And it was the only time that I've ever tried to click upload and been nervous about what I was about to show everyone, and I was so just honored that they received it so well.
Is it true that you auditioned for the TV version of The Wiz, or what's the story there?
I did. I had the most full-out audition video of all time. I had like 75 dancers in it. It went from me auditioning in a room to being on stage, and then this huge flash mob. And the company at Telsey reached out to me, and the people at Fox or NBC, wherever it was airing, I don't really remember, but they reached out and they were like, we've never seen an audition video this full out, thank you so much. And I was really honestly very excited for Elijah Kelly because I think he's such a talented artist, but I'm like the biggest Wizard of Oz fan, and so I said, said, F it, you know, I'm going to make my own Wizard of Oz, my own version, and I'm going to play all the characters.
Awesome. The things you were talking about just now, even though this film, or the visual album, I mean, Straight Outta Oz, came out about a year and a half ago or so, I even feel then it was sort of a little ahead of its time. A lot of the topics you were tackling in that album we're talking about more now. And one of the things I want to talk about, I mean, you did it in a lighthearted way, but there's a casting couch scene in that film with Nicole Scherzinger playing your predator, I guess. And even though most of the things we're hearing about, the people coming forward, their stories are women, men also have their own stories. Was that autobiographical or inspired that scene? Or like, what was making you think I want to tackle that topic in this way?
Without saying too much, that was something that I experienced. I had a casting director that I thought friends with. I'm not really sure if we were friends or not, but it seemed like a lot of the things that he was doing was reaching out to me often, like way too often, and it was in a sexual manner, and I didn't know if, because it was disguised as a friendship, if we were actually friends, whether to laugh it off and just send an emoji of a monkey covering his eyes, or if I should like address the situation. But it did make me feel uncomfortable enough to write this song about it, because not only was the action just a little bit uncomfortable, but sometimes you feel guilty for playing into it and for responding to that person with something other than "don't do this again," because that person has the power to in some ways manipulate your career or success or lack thereof. And so it was just a difficult time and a difficult situation. So I wrote that song as kind of a lighthearted song and switched it to a woman, and wanted to compare it to the Poppies in the Wizard of Oz story, because they're trying to get them to go to sleep. And I felt like that was a good comparison, but now it is a lot more relevant than it was when I wrote the song.
Did you get any feedback at that time from people who were like, oh wow, I've been there, or what was the reaction to that scene?
Honestly, a lot of people they just thought it was a great song, and they didn't really think very much of it. There were some people that wrote me and they were like, this is a really interesting thing that you made this a woman, but I've gone through this situation before. But a lot of people, it just went over their head. They were like, nice outfit. I love that she freezes in a back bend. I like this song.
Well, that part was cool.
Thank you. But yeah, I think that it's a lot more relevant now than it was last year, and now I think if I were to re-upload it, it would cause more of a conversation.
Another thing that was relevant at the time and is more talked about now, you addressed what was happening at Orlando. It was actually, I think Straight Outta Oz came out very shortly after that tragedy. Was that a last minute addition to the visual album?
Yeah, well, I wrote the song, and you see this in the documentary. I wrote the song, and the night I wrote the song, Christina Grimmie was shot in Orlando, and then the next night we filmed the video, and we found out about the Pulse shooting right after we wrapped shooting. And so, I mean, it was kind of happening at the same time we were shooting, which was very odd. And so I was like, I really want to implement this part where I'm spray painting the names of the victims that had recently left, and also Trayvon Martin. And I wrote the song for my friend Jill Smith, who was unfortunately killed in an accident. She was shot, and she was a cop in my town of Arlington, Texas. And so the crew members all volunteered their time to come back and shoot the next day to add those things in, which I thought was a very sweet gesture of them.
Very. So obviously the topic of gun control or gun violence has become even unfortunately a hotter topic since then. Again, what was the feedback you received from that scene, particularly since the tragedies of Orlando were so present in people's mind at the time?
It was one of the most popular songs, and I was obviously passionate about it, but it was great to be working with Jordan Sparks, who was also equally as passionate about it, and all the work that she does for the LGBTQ community. We had no idea that the Pulse shooting was going to happen, but she was even more elated to be a part of it because of that, and she talked about that on The View a couple of days after it happened. But in the documentary, you see a lot of people who were friends and family members of the victims came to see the show and said that song really helped them get through it, and gave them, music heightens every emotion. So for them to be able to have something to just like help vocalize how they feel, but in a music form, I think was very helpful and comforting for them.
It was shown in the trailer just now, but so I want to talk a little bit more about that. What was your family's reaction to, you pretty much laid it all out there in this album, and it is implied that perhaps there were some mixed feelings in your family about that, or what was the reaction?
Well, my mom had a difficulty. I mean, I grew up in the Bible Belt, the heart of the Bible Belt of Texas, and my parents are super conservative and super Christian. I was raised at a gospel church every Sunday since the week I was born. And so it was a difficult situation, just me wanting to be an out gay man, but then putting that out on social media to where it is like an undeniable fact that people that don't know me know that I'm a gay man. But I think it's so important for people who are growing up in these small towns to have a role model to look up to online that looks like them and sounds like them and lives a life that's very similar to the one that they lead themselves. I think that's so important, and so it was not an option for me not to be very vocal and be an advocate for everything that I truly stand for. I make it very known. I think that's part of my responsibility as a public figure and a social media influencer. But I thought it was interesting that my dad didn't realize that how he made me feel by telling me I wasn't allowed to play with dolls and things like that. So after he watched this, he came to the show and was like, I didn't even realize I was just so ignorant, and I apologize. So while it touched other people's lives, it really changed a lot of people in my family's own life. And I think it brought my mom and I closer, the album, and then us shooting the documentary. She's a huge part of the documentary, and I just appreciate her so much for being so real and honest and just like raw and open. And I think my family, who hasn't seen the documentary yet, I think it's going to really impact my whole family and my whole, environment, and everybody, my fans, are going to get to really know me. This is the first time that people can see me in a truly unedited, like raw form where I'm not super polished. On my MTV show, everything was very like Disney Channel and produced, and this is like me. You see me being really nice, but you also see me being really bitchy and like going off on people, and I think that it shows that who I really am. So people might unsubscribe from my channel after this, or they might be like, I really like him now.
When is your family going to see it? And are you going to sit with them while you watch it together?
A lot of my family members are coming to the documentary premiere next Wednesday in Texas, and so I'm excited about that, which, by the way, the tickets are available at todrickhall.com. If you're in Dallas, the DFW area, please come out because I'm going to be there on Wednesday, and it's going to be really fun. I never get to go home, so I'm excited that I get to be in Texas for one day.
And are you nervous to watch it with them? No?
I don't get nervous anymore. I've realized that like it is what it's gonna be, and there have been days that I've been so sick and so tired. When I was doing Kinky Boots last year, 8 shows a week, and sometimes I would be like, I can't give my best today, so maybe I should just not go to work because I don't want people to pay to see less than my best. But when God gives you a gift, like even you at 50% or 25% is still such a gift that people can see it, and they'd rather me be there and giving my all. And you know what I mean? They weren't there the night before. They weren't there. They won't be there tomorrow. They can only experience what you do in the theater that day. And now I've realized if I go and give 100% of what I have in that moment, that's enough. And it's changed my whole outlook on when I'm on tour, when I'm on stage, when I'm on Broadway, when I'm in an interview. I just want to be like there. They will say, well, here are the questions we're going to ask you. And I'm like, I want you to ask me on camera because I want to give you my real, raw, authentic answer.
You're my favorite kind of interview subject. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
We're going back to the family thing, and not just family, but obviously this is an autobiographical, the visual album is autobiographical. Were there any family members or significant others, whatever, who were played by people like Amber Riley, what did they think of how they were depicted in the film? Did you get any positive feedback or negative feedback of being like, I didn't like how this was depicted?
No, I think everybody really liked how it was, because like my mom, I literally took the voicemails that she sent me and wrote lyrics based on those voicemails. So it was like everything was very true to how it was. I mean, obviously I haven't heard from Gareth, my ex-boyfriend, who I wrote a song about. He was my first love. I wish I had heard from him, but he doesn't talk to me right now, but maybe things will be changing. We'll be looking for, I don't know why. I think that's ridiculous. I think if you're in a relationship and you love someone at any point in life, you should be able to be mature and still talk to that person and be friends with that person, because life is too short to be having grudges with people that you once loved, you know? Thank you.
When you talk about your childhood and growing up in that small town, you've obviously mentioned The Wizard of Oz, but also we see a lot of Disney and fairy tale and just like fantasy childhood imagery in all of your art. And I want to know where that comes from. Does it come from, did that stuff comfort you as a child? Like, because you were in a troubled childhood and you could like escape into that?
No, I don't feel like I was in a troubled childhood. I just really liked those things. I think I longed to like go to a Broadway show, but I didn't even know Broadway existed then. There was no internet, no YouTube when I was growing up. And so I just was drawn to things that were musical, and my mom didn't let me watch things that were PG-13, rated R, or whatever. And so I just watched the Disney Channel. Back when you had to pay for Disney Channel every month, I used to watch Disney Channel religiously, and I just always loved like Even Stevens and That's So Raven and all of those shows. And when they would have a musical episode, I would love it even more. And when Cinderella came out with Brandy and Whitney Houston, that movie changed my life. I watched it all the time. I know the choreography that the dancers do at the ball, and when they say the prince is giving a ball. I just was always so drawn to things like that, and I always loved watching the different versions of The Wizard of Oz, or how many ways could you tell the story of Cinderella. And so yeah, it was just, I just always was fascinated by it, and I can't really explain why I loved fairy tales and things like that so much. Maybe it was because I really identify with Dorothy, and I felt like I was in this small town, this farming community, and I knew there was something greater out there for me, but I didn't really know what it was. And so I think it was my way to escape, just to like go to Wonderland or go to Oz, and like I always imagined myself living in this house that looked like a real life castle, like from a fairy tale, with like geese and like giraffes, and you know, like I have the Neverland syndrome, like the Peter Pan syndrome. I just think I'm never gonna fully grow all the way up.
Well, you just mentioned Broadway. You definitely know what Broadway is now. I mean, how do you feel about the fact, first Kinky Boots, now Chicago? This is a dream for you, obviously. What is it like to do it in reality?
It's a dream. My best friend and I used to sit around and talk about can you imagine what it would be like to be on Broadway? And I will never forget the amount of butterflies I was filled with, and just like joy whenever I got the call, like we would like to invite you to join Oprah Winfrey's The Color Purple on Broadway. I like lost my mind. I saved that voicemail for years. And so now it seems surreal to get to be on Broadway so many times, twice in 1 year. This is my second lead role on Broadway in 1 year. It seems like 4 years ago that I was Lola in Kinky Boots, but I just finished in March. And it's just really awesome. Chicago is such an iconic musical. I've made so many parodies about it on my YouTube channel. I've loved that show for forever. And I'm working with so many seasoned actors. It's like, so I'm learning. I never went to school for musical theater, so I feel like I'm at school for musical theater now, getting to do the show, and it's just awesome to be able to bring a new twist and add a little flair to a character like Billy Flynn.
Well, since we're talking about Kinky Boots, so that takes me into the subject of drag. If there's one TV show I like more than American Idol, it's RuPaul's Drag Race.
Yes,
Best
God.
show on TV.
Yes.
And I've loved you on it. I've loved you as a mentor and also an All-Stars judge. And All-Stars 3 is coming up soon.
Yes, God.
Are you going to be involved in that, or season 10 of regular Drag Race?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say if I'm going to be there or not, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm going to be there. Like, I don't know. I don't want to say too much, but I think that it's going to be an amazing season. And I love the fact that the producers trust me so much. When I first started there, I was just doing judging, and now I'm not in LA very often, but I try to be as involved as I can. And I love that they let me choreograph the number last year with Sasha and with Shay and Peppermint and Trinity. Those are the things that make me happy, because it's always my challenge to get the girls to do so well that Rupaul and Michelle and Carson can't eliminate anyone. And I love that show because it's unlike what I think American Idol was. I don't know, because I was never backstage, but it seems like it's a little bit produced and rigged. I know that RuPaul legitimately stands on that table, and whoever deserves to win, that's who's going to win. And I think that's what the reality show should be. Like, I don't think that it should be the producers are saying, oh, we need a person like this. We've never had a big girl. We've never had an Asian. We've never had a little person or something, you know, like RuPaul is like, that's great. But if the person deserves to win, then they win. And I think that that's what a real competition show should be about, because it's anyone's game.
Have you learned any life lessons or entertainment business lessons from the veteran RuPaul who's seen it all?
So much. When I had my MTV show, I would stress every day about the ratings and stuff, and he was like, "Stop! You cannot do that." He would have probably never thought that it was going to take him this long in his career to have like the biggest reality show of life. But he's like, all you can do is walk into every room and give 100% of what you've got in that moment, and whatever you have, that's what you can give at that moment. And if that is the hit or the success, then that's great. But if it's not, move to the next project. Don't take your scars and baggage from the last project. It's like a relationship. You can't take your scars from one scrub to the next scrub, you know, and like you have to. If you're going to be in a relationship, you have to start with a clean slate and say, like, until you give me reason to doubt you, I'm not going to. And until you give me reason not to trust you, I'm gonna believe what you say. And so I've learned that, and I've started to implement that into my everyday life as far as every project I give 100% and just hope for the best. And if it's not it, I have more ideas, and that's what a gift is. It should be endless.
Speaking of more ideas, do you think there'll be a sequel to Straight Outta Oz? Straight Outta Oz 2?
I think I'm done with Straight Outta Oz for now, but there is talk of bringing the show to Broadway, and I would be really excited to turn it into a book musical.
Yeah. Everyone just like gasped when
Yeah,
you
there are
said
people, and that would be a dream come true. But I'm working on my next album now, and I'm really, really excited about that. And I'm going to be going on tour next year in March, and so the tickets go on sale next week at todrickhall.com. And this tour is going to be so exciting. The music is so much different from anything I've ever done. Straight Outta Oz, I think, is what gave me the courage to know that my fan base would buy an album if the album was just good. The reason why I love the story of The Wizard of Oz so much is that Dorothy had the power to go back home from the beginning, but she didn't realize that until she had already met 3 boys and took them along with her, which I don't know what type of person just meets 3 men on one day and invites them along with her, but that's a conversation for a different day, honey. But I was like, Dorothy was getting around in these red pumps, honey, which is why I wrote low, because I was like, what kind of girl from the country just goes and meets 3 men, like grown men, hairy men, hard men, and takes them on a journey with her? I don't know. That's suspect to me. But
one that doesn't even have a heart.
no heart. Like, why would you? He admitted he didn't have a heart in the beginning. That's usually something you wait till the 3rd or 4th date and say, yo, I don't have a heart. But, you know. But the body is real hard, and like the gym membership is real. But no, yeah, I mean that. But the reason why I compare my life story to The Wizard of Oz is because I was waiting and waiting and waiting for someone to give me permission to write an album, and then I was like, Todrick, you like literally preach online every day that you don't need a label, you don't need permission, you don't need a great manager, you don't need an agent. If you write great music and put it out there and it's produced great and put in a great package that looks professional, people will buy it. And when I saw my name sandwiched between Beyonce's and Adele's, there was nothing else I needed to prove to myself that I could do it. And so now with this next album, it's not a play on Cinderella or The Wizard of Oz or Alice in Wonderland. It's just a story that I'm very passionate about. It's going to be a visual album again, and I'm really excited for people to not only get the music and experience it, but to come see us live on tour.
When is that album? The album will be out before March for the tour?
It's going to be around March, in the springtime somewhere. I don't want to give a date because I'm horrible about that, but it'll be in sometime around March, and then the tour starts at the end of March, the 29th or 30th.
Amazing. Well, I want to ask one last question before we go to audience Q&A, but you obviously showed a whole different side of yourself, not just with Straight Outta Oz, but obviously with Behind the Curtain. So what is the main thing a fan would find out from watching Behind the Curtain that they didn't know about you that would surprise them?
I think that people come to the show, even though I talk about it all the time, it's very difficult for you to understand that one person can write his own album in 2.5 weeks and choreograph it and produce it and costume all of his stuff and cast his dancers and like book the tour and go out and do all these things. And people always ask me, how can I make my YouTube channel successful? How can I build a brand from my little house in Idaho or Iowa? And I think when you watch this documentary, you actually see me doing all these things and having to deal with really tough business issues that sometimes people don't see because they come and watch a show with lights and sound and they just take it in and they don't realize that every shoe had to be purchased, every wig, every earring, every microphone had to be rented, every light, the haze that you see in the air that you don't realize that you're having to pay for those things. It all costs money and someone has to do that. And I'm her. I'm the person that's doing it.
Money well spent, though.
Thank you.
Money well spent.
But I just want people to know that it is possible to do it. And if you are willing to not have sleep and not have a social life and be able to like really grind, you can make it happen for yourself.
That's a great message. Well, I know we have fans here who have questions. Where's the first question? Through?
Hi, Todrick. How are you?
She was ready with the microphone and everything. Yes. She said, hi, Todrick. Hello. What's up?
I wanted to ask you, it's like a twofold question. What have been some of the pros and some of the cons about coming out? And what would you like those who are homophobic to know so that they can be more empathetic and sympathetic to the LGBTQ community?
That's an amazing question. The pros have been just being able to touch other people's lives. I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, it's really, there are so many people. I remember growing up and never seeing anyone that looked like me on television, and I think that's so important. I think that a little girl should not feel like she can't be a princess because she doesn't look like Cinderella or Belle or Snow White or Aurora or any of these people. Everyone should feel beautiful. Everyone should have someone to look up to that they say that is something that is an achievable, attainable goal for me. And so to come out and hear these people's stories, which was unintentional, I didn't come out thinking I was going to be anyone's role model, but when people come to the show, I like start crying sometimes when I meet like a little black boy or a little kid, a little boy who's like doing ballet, or I meet lots of trans kids who their parents are bringing them to the show and saying this is the only show that my daughter felt safe coming to, and that's the biggest pro. The biggest con, I think, is that as open-minded as Hollywood likes to pretend that she is, like, people oftentimes, they will be very willing to give someone an Oscar for being a straight man who was daring enough to play a gay character, which I think is ridiculous, and it takes work away from gay actors who are actually out there, and the roles are very numbered. But very rarely do you see someone be brave enough to cast a gay actor as a straight character, which is, I think, the reason why people like Colton Haynes don't come out sooner. I don't think he had a problem sharing that with the world, but he probably thought, and I don't know him on this personal of a level, but I can imagine that a lot of people would feel like they weren't able to be successful in the industry anymore because people, once they hear that you're gay, that if you're singing a love song, they imagine some hairy man with like nipple clips on or something, and that's all they can see. I don't know if that's too much for me to say on this show, but I think that's the con. And I would like to change that. I would love to see, I don't have a problem with straight men playing gay characters, but I would also like to see the equal. I would like to see gay men be cast as leading men in shows, and for people to be okay with that fact. But I think we're getting there slowly but surely. And what was the second part of your question again? Oh, got it. I think that one thing, I don't know, I think that people, oftentimes, I always say that the manipulation process of a human starts before you're even born. People want to go inside your stomach, not because they care if you're a boy or girl, but because they want to adorn their room with every pink or blue garment they can get to let everyone know that they had a boy or girl. And when I have a child, everything is going to be purple. I don't care. I'm not going to let my child have pink and blue things or explain to them that if they're a girl, they need to have long hair, or if they're a boy, they need to have short hair, because I just think that those are things that are like rules that are beat into our head that we don't realize are life rules, but they do strongly affect how we look and view the world. I think one thing that people could do is, like, when you're in a room and someone is acting homophobic, oftentimes we say, well, that's not my problem, I'm not actually gay, I don't want to speak up. But it takes someone speaking up and saying, that is not cool, and you should not be doing that, you should not say that in front of your kids, and you shouldn't teach your children that. I think that's the only way for us to move forward, because we've all been inside of a room and had an uncomfortable situation where someone says something racist or something homophobic or transphobic, and if we don't stand up and say, I'm not cool with that, then everyone thinks that within the confines of people who look and sound like them, that it's okay to be racist or homophobic. And I think for everyone who is okay with it to stand up and say, I don't have a problem with gay people, and I don't think you should either, that conversation is what I think, more than anything, more than a billboard, more than a TV show, more than music, can change the world.
Next question.
I have two things to say before my question.
Okay.
One, I'm really glad you're here.
I'm glad you're here. Thank you.
And two, you and Scott and Mitch are three of my favorite people, and I look up to all of you so much.
Thank you.
You're
so
also
much.
talented, too.
Thank you.
My question actually was sort of related to them. How difficult was it to make Pentatonix?
To make Pentatonix. It was not difficult at all. It just felt like a lot of fun because I know all of them so well. I grew up with Scott and Mitch and Kirsty in Arlington, Texas, and so I know the things about them that are funny. I was more concerned with would people understand that it was funny, because there's a double standard. I mean, I was in... my face was painted white, you know, and there would be no world where that would be acceptable for them to all paint themselves black to pretend to be me. But I just thought it was like a funny thing, and White Chicks is one of my favorite movies, and I was like, if the Wayans brothers can do it, I can do it. And so I was glad that they all co-signed it and tweeted it, and so that their fans could see that it was all in good fun and it was all comedy. And it was one of my favorite nights. We were laughing so hard we could hardly even film the video because we were laughing hard, and those are memories that I'll never forget. And thanks for asking that question. No one's ever asked me that before.
I could talk to you all day, but we only have time for one more question.
Okay.
It's going to be from the audience.
Hey, Todrick. Big fan of your show.
Thank you so much, babe.
Are we going to have another Todrick show anytime soon?
I have no idea. I've been approached by a couple of reality shows to do another show, but I just want to make sure that from now on, every project, I learned a huge lesson from that show, and I'm so grateful for that experience, but I've just learned that I have to be very hands-on and stand up for the things that I want because it's my brand and my name, and I don't want to promote anything ever again to my fans that I'm not proud of. So when the right time comes along and when it seems like the right project and the production to artist relationship is where it should be, then I would happily do another reality show.
And I would watch it, as we all would. Thank you so much for your candor. It's been a really fascinating conversation. Thank you for your great questions as well. And yeah, I'll be seeing you on tour next year.
I can't wait. Thank you.